That's Jay. Yes, he's filming it. All right, I think we'll all rise and open the meeting tonight. Call the Common Council meeting to order, and Diane will lead us in an invocation.
As we gather together this evening and celebrate the children of our community, we recognize the joy and opportunities our youngest citizens bring to our lives. May we all be aware of those children and their caregivers who are struggling and need a kind word, a helping hand, and sound guidance from us. Help us to see and truly listen to their voices and step up instead of just assuming someone else will offer. We know a mark of a strong society is the care and respect given to the most vulnerable. Equip us to provide for them. May we as public officials create policies and programs that address those needs and enable the agencies and institutions that provide care to function efficiently, effectively, and equitably. We ask these things as humble servants, willing and eager. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, Diane. I appreciate that. We'll start with the approval of the minutes. Before I do that, we will take a little inventory here online. Jake, good evening, welcome. How are you?
Good morning, everyone there. Or whatever time of day it is.
Yeah, it's 7:01, so thank you for your promptness wherever you are.
Well, my time would say it's tomorrow morning already, so that explains it.
Got it. Well, Jay is taking place of our city attorney, Scott Royce, so thank you for joining us tonight, Jay. Also joining us online is Councilman Jeff Gross. He's on sabbatical. Wherever he is, he doesn't need to remind us. So Jeff will be joining us and we'll be able to vote tonight. Other callers, caller number 1 is Larry Plummer, our Parks Superintendent, and caller number 2 is Jennifer Whitaker, HR Department Head. And then everyone else here is present with the exception of Councilman Clondare, so let the minutes reflect there are 6 council members eligible to vote tonight, 5 in person, 1 digitally, and we will require a roll call vote for each action that we take. And again, just as a reminder, with quorum will require 4 votes to act on anything tonight. With that, let's start then with the approval of the minutes from March 15th. Those have been presented. I will just remind you tonight we are having a public hearing on the Ehrman petition ordinance to vacate, and that was approved on first reading at the last meeting. Just to clarify what's next tonight. Are there any other comments or questions regarding the minutes that were presented in your board pack? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve those as presented?
I'd so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. We will, unless there are any other comments, we'll do a roll call vote. Jeff Gross?
Yes.
Diane Quantz?
Aye.
Jerry Frush?
Yes.
Josh Finch?
Aye.
Jack Wilhite?
Aye.
And Cindy Dobbins?
Aye.
All right, passes 6-0. Thank you. All right, let's take a brief respite from the regular business of the council, and we've got 2 groups tonight that we're very honored to honor and happy they're here. We will start with CASA. Erin Rowland Jones is the executive director of CASA. She has brought a group with her tonight. We're happy to have them. I'd ask them to come up front, or Erin, however you want to do this. I'll come read the proclamation. going to join? All right. Well, again, thank you all for joining us. When we're finished here, I'll let Aaron say a few words about CASA and some of the events that are coming up. But the reason we're here tonight is a proclamation, Office of the Mayor. And I'll just read this. I'll give you some whereases, and we'll get down to the very important part of this. So, whereas CASA of Kosciuszko County is a nonprofit organization which advocates for the best interest of abused and neglected children who are entangled in the court system. And whereas in 2020, CASA of Kosciuszko County had 67 volunteers donating 4,277 hours of their time advocating for 167 abused and/or neglected children in our community, plus advocating for 29 children embroiled in high conflict custody visitation cases. And whereas in 2020, Kosciuszko County Department of Child Services investigated 1,284 reports of abuse or neglect in our county, and whereas child abuse and neglect are a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from our community as a whole. All citizens should become more aware of the negative effects of child abuse and neglect, as well as its prevention within the community. And whereas through the community's involvement, we are able to scale our impact and reach more children with the goal of serving every child in need. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Joseph M. Tallmer, Mayor of the City of Warsaw, do hereby proclaim April as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. Our county officials are working hard to decrease the causes of abuse and neglect, but the reality is that more and more children are in need of our services. Aaron, you got a few things to say, and I know you got a few events. Time to get a little free publicity.
Oh, thank you. So with me today is 2 board members as well as a longtime CASA volunteer. Our CASAs are volunteers from the community that we support, train, and recruit to advocate on behalf of abused and neglected children. April being Child Abuse and Awareness, Prevention and Awareness Month, we have several things that are going on. April 16th is our annual pinwheel garden planting. The blue and silver pinwheel is the symbol for child abuse prevention. So we'll have a march around the courthouse square at noon on April 16th, plant our pinwheel garden. We'll have speakers from the Department of Child Services, a foster mother, and State Representative Craig Snow will be there as well. On April 21st, Clearwater Car Wash is doing a give back day where $2 from every car wash will be donated to CASA. And on April 27th at Hacienda is another give back day where 20% of the proceeds of sales that day will be going to CASA as well. As the mayor said, we had over 4,000 hours donated by our volunteers that advocated for 167 abused and neglected children that are within the court system. That doesn't include those that have not been part of that court system. So there's certainly a need. If any of you are interested in volunteering, you can contact us, come to those events. We'll have information for you on our website, CASAchildren.com. Thank you.
And again, I certainly want to thank you for everything you do. We know how important CASA is, and the volunteer side of this is what makes our community great. And thank you all for your participation tonight. So a little round of applause for CASA. Thank you. All right, thank you, CASA. Appreciate you coming in tonight. Our second proclamation is to Launchpad, Sherry Searles. Sherry, you want to come up? And if you've got support, you're willing to, or have everybody come up, that'd be great. Launchpad is an initiative to try and solve the very critical problems of child care in our community. And I know, Sherry, I'll give you a chance when we're finished here to say a few words. So let's start with the proclamation. Whereas Launchpad, Kosciuszko County's Early Learning Coalition, in conjunction with the National Association for the Education of Young Children, NAEYC, are celebrating the Week of the Young Child, April 10th through the 16th, 2021. And whereas early learning professionals provide quality education and care to children birth to age 5, including more than 30 child care programs and preschool programs in Kosciuszko County. And whereas early learning programs are working to improve learning opportunities and inspire high-quality early childhood experiences for our youngest citizens that can provide a foundation of learning, growth, development, and success for children in our community. And whereas the positive impacts of quality early childhood education and care are well documented for young children and their families, and whereas teachers and others who work on or behalf of young children and who make a difference in the lives of young children in our community deserve thanks, recognition, and support. And whereas those early learning professionals are a critical part of the backbone of essential workers who have sustained our community and business infrastructure during the COVID-19 crisis. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Mayor Joseph M. Tallmer, Mayor of the City of Warsaw, Indiana, do hereby proclaim April 10th through the 16th, 2021, as the Week of the Young Child. So I know Stacy from my office is involved on the board, and I know you all have been working very hard under a lot of different circumstances to try and solve the concerns and shortages of affordable child care in the community. As was mentioned in the proclamation, this is such a critical component of our workforce and the ability to recruit qualified workforce. So what you're doing is so important, and I know you can probably give it a little bit more talk than I can, so why don't you take over?
Thank you, Mayor. I have with me tonight Amanda Torres. She is from our Child Care Resource and Referral, Geminis. So she's been working here in Kosciuszko County too. You may or may not be aware that Kosciuszko County has been declared a child care desert. So that means we have one child care seat for every 3 children that need care so their parents can work. We're short about 1,800 child care seats in the county. Of course, that affects, as Mayor said, the ability to attract and retain workforce. And so Launchpad has been in operation for a little over 2 years, working to solve this complex and difficult issue, to make child care affordable, but yet to be able to pay the child care workers a fair wage. So the current system has a lot of broken pieces, and so we're working to try to fix some of those and to create a model that will work so the families in our community have good, high quality, and affordable care.
Thanks for all the work you're doing. Thank you. All right. All right. So item number 3 will be reports, oral written communication. And Jeremy is going to give us just a brief, high-level look at the Warsaw Redevelopment Commission financial report. As he's making his way to the podium, this information is required by the state, by state statute, to look at the activities and finances of our Redevelopment Commission and TIF districts. Presentation was made today at the Redevelopment Commission. Dr. Hoffert was here from School Corporation, and obviously we're involved with all the local overlapping units of government are impacted by TIF, and I think the work done by Jeremy his preparation and the detail that he's put into this explains in a very positive way how much our redevelopment commission and TIF dollars are used to enhance and grow our community, build our assessed value, and also grow our population. So, Jeremy, I'd much rather you talk about this and give us a little bit of the details.
Yeah, so keep in mind, this is kind of a look back at 2020's operation. And then there's some 2021 information going forward that you can use for budgeting purposes. But like the mayor stated, this is a requirement per the state code that you have these certain information or documentation prior to April, I think 15th or 16th of every year. This started back in 2012, so this is almost the 10th year you will have received this report. And it's pretty much the same format, so it should start to become real familiar. In the front, you have all the redevelopment commission members, redevelopment authority members, and any employees of the redevelopment commission. Currently, there are only two, James Emmons, the city engineer, and myself. And then you have a 2020 balance and expenditure that just gives you a real high overview of the revenue and money that was expended in each district. I have also included the Warsaw Technology Park in this report for your information. It is not necessarily part of the TIF reporting requirements, but I do think it's important that you see a lot of the efforts and the progress that we make on all of those districts, including the technology park. You'll have 2020 expenditures that'll go through each district and what was expended and for what reason, 2021 budgets, and then it starts to break down by each district. The important thing to look at when you're looking at each district is the projects that we have outlined and the ones that we've worked on, they've completed, as well as the ones that we still have yet to complete. And then it goes into the debt obligation, and that'll come up as being important a little later. The debt obligation as well as the revenue, and then each budget year. And then it has a 2020 beginning balance expenditures for that year by line item, as well as revenue received. So it just gives you a very high level operation of each TIF district. The most important kind of part of this document is kind of at the end, where it gives you kind of an overview, which looks at revenue, the fiscal debt service, as well as funds available and potential project costs as we look to accomplish those projects that are outlined within each district. And the real high-level view here is trying to look at the revenue that you have coming in, your debt obligation, as well as funds available to complete projects that are on that list, and the ability to consider whether or not you would pass through any TIF. Every year, the City Council and the Redevelopment Commission has to send notification to all the taxing units of whether or not we're going to pass through any revenue. This report dictates the funds and the revenue and the reason for why my recommendation to the Council and the Redevelopment Commission for each district. So for each district, I make a recommendation at the end. It's highlighted. And as an example, for the Northern TIF District, based on our consolidated debt obligation and extensive project list, the Commission doesn't expect to pass through any excess district revenue over the next 3 years. So this just gives you a high-level project planning list, as well as debt obligation, and then funding, and then the reason why we're not passing through any excess TIF to other taxing agencies. This will be the first year of this report. Does not have the Eastern TIF District in 2019 or 2018 into early 19. We consolidated both the Northern and Eastern TIF District into one district. So we have basically three major TIF districts that are operating at this point, being the Northern TIF, redevelopment allocation, and the Winona Interurban. Next year's report will have both of the residential TIF districts in them, both the South and the Northern TIF District. This will be the first year that they've received revenue. So next year, those districts will also be in this report. Same kind of concept with the redevelopment allocation. It goes through the process, any outstanding debt, the balance, and the budgets, as well as project lists. And then for all three TIF districts at this point, I'm not recommending to the council that we pass through any excess TIF, primarily because our projects that are outlined. In some cases exceed the amount of TIF that we're receiving, especially in the Winona interurban and the redevelopment allocation. Both of those districts, we do not have excess revenue available and to be able to complete those projects that we have outlined. It is also important to note throughout here, I also talk about debt obligation as well as our requirements for our debt obligation. We're required to carry 200% coverage on those debts per the bonds that we issue. So it's not only the debt obligation that we have, but we also have a requirement to cover those debt obligations 200%. So a lot of the balances that we have are really just carrying that debt obligation and those covered factors per each bond issue. The certified tech park, as you know, is capped at $5 million, and then after that $5 million, I believe we're allowed to create another $250,000 a year that we can get and continue to collect ongoing. We have not hit our $5 million. We've to date, as of 2020, we've roughly received $1.9 million in revenue, so we still have about $3 million left to collect before we hit that $5 million cap. After we hit that $5 million cap, then we would be restricted to an additional $250,000 a year in potential revenue. At this point, per the existing code, we have to achieve that additional SS valuation to get that $250,000. I know there's some legislation, and the Redevelopment Commission has been a part in helping all the technology parks across the state try to change some of that legislation so that we don't lose that all that revenue that we've worked so hard to get. But as of right now, we would have to generate that additional $250,000. Same principle, it has a budget, current balance. We do not have any outstanding debt. We do have a contract with the Excellinks that I believe the last payment is in 2020. So this year was the last payment for that agreement, but it just gives you the revenue. And this can be used within the tech park for any projects, economic development that we need to incentivize the development and the future development of that technology park, as well as the Innovation Center, which on our recertification with the technology park was a big goal that was still left unaccomplished at this point. So for the next 4 years, that Innovation Center, that incubator, will be a primary goal of the Redevelopment Commission and the Tech Park District. The final part of the report is also a state requirement to look at the potential impact of TIF and the overlapping tax units. So what I've done is just provided a breakdown of each district and the revenue that they received, and then excluding those factors, excluding those dollars that attributed to a project that was created by the redevelopment district or that tax increment financing. So as those debt obligations start to come off, you start to see the real impact is not for example, the redevelopment allocation, its increment is $308,000 a year. But when you start to take off those projects that were funded by the TIF, you start to drop down to the $55,000. And then when you factor in those projects that are outside of the TIF district that happened because of the projects that we completed, it really starts to become a negligible impact on the district in itself. Each district is kind of laid out that way so you can see what the increment is and what the impact on each taxing district is. And that was the purpose of the public hearing this afternoon, was to invite all those taxing agencies to come and ask any questions and review the report. So that is a really quick high-level review of this report. But the nice thing I'd like to tell my Redevelopment Commission and you as a City Council is this will really come in handy when I start preparing the budgets. You'll really start to see why we're doing what we're doing. You'll see the project list. You'll know what projects we're trying to accomplish. So it'll give you a really good basis when we're looking at the budgets in June.
Jeremy, for that reason, could we get this dropped into the library so we could refer back to it instead of having to go to this council meeting? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think we did that in the past. I'll talk to them about doing it again.
Thank you.
Yeah, one question I have, Jeremy, going back to page 3, where we're looking at the revenue and the balances and everything, On the northern TIF and the central TIF, okay, if I'm looking at the balance beginning in 2020, the revenue, and then the expenditures, it doesn't seem to add up with what the ending balance is on 2020.
There's some carryover, so that what wouldn't show up would be anything that was carried over, like a PO. The main reason why the northern TIF doesn't necessarily add up is when we closed the eastern TIF, we had to transfer that money. So the revenue was kind of a misnomer. And you think, oh, we got this amount of money. No, it was a transfer from the eastern TIF district into the northern TIF district. Some of the other TIF districts get funding that comes in from other outside action, so that can throw some of the balances off as
Okay,
well.
so it's not necessarily,
No.
yeah, subtracting in.
I think in your budget books, Jeremy puts similar information, and I think if you go back to, it may not be this year's 2020, it would have been 2019, but it'll show those different factors that are adjusted. That's a good point. I just wanted to bring up this afternoon, there was a good point made, the requirement for 200% reserve for our bonds and our debt is really a benefit if we can maintain those reserves to cover those bonds. For that coverage, gives us a better rate on those bonds. So all of that adds up, and Jeremy's done a fantastic job with this document. It's a lot of work, takes a lot of time, and there's quite a bit of information in here. But keeping on top of these numbers and making sure we're complying. I would just editorially say that the legislature is always looking at ways to eliminate or minimize TIF or to reduce the effectiveness of TIF. And I think our redevelopment commission, and Jeremy will tell you, this is the one tool we have to make a difference in our community. And if you look at the population growth over the last 10 years and you look at our assessed value growth and what it's meant to our taxpayers and what it's meant to our community and jobs and schools, I think we've done a very good job. And going back to one of the first TIF districts in Indiana was right here in the central TIF district. Mayor Plank
1990, yeah.
Started the downtown TIF district in the early 90s. And these TIF districts do expire at some point. So we do have to, as far as bonding and making use of these tools, there's certainly a timeline that we have to be aware of. But for the most part, cities and towns across the state of Indiana are utilizing these tools to make their communities better, to allow their communities to grow and improve, the ability to attract economic development, opportunity, and jobs. So, Jeremy, thank you very much for the work you've done on this. And I didn't want to cut everybody short. Are there other questions? All right. Jeremy, I'm going to have you stay up here. I think we're going to skip to the abatement requests. I know our partners are here, and I don't want them to have to stay through the entire meeting, and I think it's important, as long as we've got three to consider. I know this is going to seem kind of screwy, but if I'd ask you to go to number 4, because the notes for number 2 are on number 4. So let's just go ahead and do YMET, number 4, and then we'll go back down to number 2, the daylight screen, the LeGrand AV, with those notes being on the same page there, if that makes sense. So, Jeremy?
Yes, so for YMET, they submitted in 2009 for a tax abatement. It was, I think, personal property. So they said they would invest $844,000 in personal property, and they've roughly invested around that $890,000 in personal private improvements. They said they would add some additional employees, which isn't a part of the personal property tax abatement, but they have added roughly 44 new employees since the original tax abatement. So I would recommend continuing tax abatement for YMET.
It appears this is the last year of the abatement.
It depends on the purchase, because with equipment, it can be over a period of time. So some equipment may roll off earlier than other equipment.
So Lori, that means you might have to come again next year. Well, Lori, do you have anything you'd like to say? Thank you for joining us tonight before we consider the abatement. Just appreciative of what Wyman has done for the community, and you doing a little double duty tonight with your involvement in CASA is certainly shows your community spirit and willingness to get in and be a part of our community. And very much thank you for that. But with regards to the abatement, any comments, or either of you?
I think that actually one that we celebrated our 50th anniversary last year in Kosciuszko, Warsaw, so we really appreciate the involvement of everybody. That's hard to do for a family business, so we're very appreciative of everything that you all have done for us.
We feel like things are going really well. We are growing still this year and adding more employees. So, yeah, we appreciate the community behind us.
All right, thank you. So any questions or comments?
Just that I was thrilled to see that they're adding more employees, even though it's not contingent upon that.
Yeah, their parking lot's full most of the time. I see that when I go
We'd like
past.
it to be more full than it is.
All right.
Well, I'd move to approve it.
All right, motion made by Jerry. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Cindy. We'll do unless there are other comments, we'll do a roll call vote. Jeff Gross, for the approval of the
Aye.
abatement continuation. All right. Josh Finch,
Aye.
Diane Quantz,
Aye.
Jerry Frush.
Aye.
Cindy Dobbins.
Aye.
And Jack Wilhite.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it. So we'll stay on that same page and we'll go back to item number 2, but the preliminary notes are here. CF1 compliance review form comments are for LeGrand AV, Milestone AV Technologies. Jeremy?
Yeah, so this is the same thing. This is a personal property tax abatement, so it didn't necessarily have jobs tied to it. It had a cost of equipment tied to it. So they expected to spend, I believe, it was about 1.6 million to date. They have spent around 1.2 million. Our tax abatement guidelines say that any 10-year abatements could be granted on expenditures of $1 million or more in equipment. So they certainly met our guidelines that we approved this tax abatement under. They estimated adding 30 new employees, but currently they have not added any to date. This is their 6th year of the tax abatement. Based on them meeting the personal property guidelines, I would continue tax abatement for LeGrand.
Are there representatives here from LeGrand? All right. Any questions of Jeremy on this one? Again, this is year 6.
I'll
there-
make a motion, we approve the abatement for LeGrand AV daylight screen.
All right. Is there a second?
I would second it.
All right. Any further discussion before we call the vote? All right. Jeff Gross,
Aye.
Josh Finch,
Aye.
Diane Quantz,
Aye.
Jerry Frush,
Aye.
Cindy Dobbins,
Aye.
and Jack Wilhite.
Aye.
All right, passes 6-0. Thank you. And item number 3 would be the Patrick Industries tax abatement form. This is the 3rd year of that abatement. And Jeremy, I'll let you describe that one.
So they originally estimated spending around 3.1 million, and this is also personal property. 3.1 million in new equipment. They've roughly spent 3.2 million to date. I think they initially had 168 jobs on their SB1. They currently have 147 employees. They're in their 3rd year of a tax abatement. Once again, they've expended roughly the amount of money that they said they would expend on personal property and meet the city's guidelines for a 10-year personal property tax abatement, and I would recommend continuation as well.
Are there any representatives from Patrick Industries here? All right. Questions? Looks like they've fulfilled their requirements on their personal property. Jobs appear to have exceeded what, well, no, I guess they're not quite up to the 165, but we're only in year 3, so looks to me like they're moving along pretty well. So is there a motion to approve the compliance form review for Patrick Industries?
I would move that we approve this tax abatement.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Jerry. Further discussions or questions? All right, we will roll call vote. Jeff Gross.
Aye.
Josh Finch.
Aye.
Diane Quantz.
Aye.
Jerry Frush.
Aye.
Cindy Dobbins.
Aye.
And Jack Wilhite.
Aye.
All right, passes 6-0. Thanks, Jeremy. All right, let's go back up to unfinished business. We will start with the public hearing tonight, ordinance 2021-0401 for vacation of public ways in Lakeside Park. Again, as I referred to in the minutes, the first reading, the approval was given at the last meeting. So here tonight for the public hearing is petitioner represented by Steve Snyder. And I'll ask Steve to go ahead and take it over.
Thank you, Joe. I think all of you recognize what we presented a month ago or 3 weeks ago. And what we're dealing with are 2 unopened alleys that affect my client's property. They are adjacent to another property to the south and divide my client's property from the Brown property to the north. I know Mike had raised some questions about Mr. Brown, who owns the property to the north of the east-west alley, and whether he would consent to the vacation. We have resolved any issues with Mr. Brown by creating an easement whereby my client will grant an easement over the south half of the vacated alley, and Mr. Brown will grant an easement to my client over the south half, so they have a joint access over the vacated alley. It only serves those 2 properties. It's never been opened. They have a driveway that they've been sharing in there. If the vacation is approved, then Mr. Brown and Ms. Ehrenman will sign that easement agreement, which will be recorded and run with the title to both of the properties. If you look at the elements necessary for vacation, this is a developed area, so we're not slowing development any. It doesn't impede the access of anyone to their individual property, nor does it prevent access to a church, school, or public place as stated in the statute. This puts the property back on the tax rolls, gives Jake Ehrenman, who is using the property that's vacant now, the eastern lot, the ability to make it more secure, and it actually assists the Brown property in that property right now is maybe 1 foot from the property line. After this vacation, that property line will be moved to the center of the alley and solve their setback issue.
All right, questions before we open the hearing?
I just want to say that I took a walk out there since it's near my house, and what he said is true.
Thank you.
All right, Cindy?
Steve, yeah, I'm looking at the picture here, and the area outlined in yellow, kind of off of Simmons Street, is that the unimproved lot that you're speaking of?
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. Okay, that's the lot that
Yeah.
they're seeking to get more
Yep.
access to.
That's
Okay.
it.
All right. Any further questions before we open the public hearing portion of the time? All right, so I will now ask if there's anyone here in the public that wishes to speak in favor of or on behalf of the petition or the petitioner. Anyone wishing to speak on behalf of or in favor of the petitioner?
We're the Browns.
Could you come up, sir, and give us your name? Thank you.
Robert Brown, my father. I'm junior, he's senior.
All right.
We're the ones affected by it.
Welcome.
We had talked with Steve, and we're in agreement on the easement, so,
All right.
okay?
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Brown? All right. Thank you all for coming tonight. Appreciate it. So Steve, does that agreement go into this? Do you provide
It
that?
doesn't need to.
Okay.
The ordinance simply vacates it. Mr. Brown's here to sign the easement tonight,
I see.
and I will get Heather Aaronman's signature on it. I'll take care of recording it. I'll record it because Lynn's going to email me a copy of the signed ordinance. I'll record that. And then immediately after that, I'll record the easement.
All right. Jay, any comments on the process with the,
Other than what Steve said about the order, which you do think is exactly correct, so.
anything we should be aware of?
Other than that, no.
All right, great. Thank you.
I would like to thank the board for coming out and being aware of the closeness of it to our home there, because it brought it more to our attention so that we could talk to them about, because we were originally going to protest it, and then they stepped forward and talked about the easement and everything to make it better, so. But I just wanted to comment and say thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sounds like we did get it resolved, too. All right. Is there anyone here wishing to speak against the petition? Is there anyone here wishing to speak against the petition to vacate? All right. Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public portion of the meeting and throw it back to the council.
Since everyone's concerns are satisfied, I'd make a motion that we approve ordinance 2021-0401 on final reading.
All right, motion's been made by Diane to approve ordinance 2021-0401. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, second by Jerry. Any further discussion or comments? All right. With that, we will roll call vote. Jeff Gross.
Aye.
Josh Finch.
Aye.
Diane Quantz.
Aye.
Jerry Frush.
Aye.
Cindy Dobbins.
Aye.
Jack Wilhite.
Aye.
All right, great. Well, thank you. There you go. We're all set. Appreciate it. Appreciate your patience. All right, so new business, item number 1, somehow is the final item of the evening. Sorry, Jennifer and Larry.
Hello. Well, good evening, everyone. Before you is a salary ordinance amendment for some seasonal positions for the Parks and Recreation Department that I asked be approved on first reading this evening. The increases range anywhere from 17 cents to $2.75 on the hour, or it's an average of about $1.40. This amendment is really needed and requested to attract and retain returning employees this summer.
And Larry Plummer is on, Parks Department Superintendent, and I know, Larry, you have a few comments about what's being proposed here tonight.
Yes, I would just like to say that, we're currently paying some of our seasonal staff $15 an hour, just like any other departments are doing. This amount has helped us, as Jennifer said, to fill these positions. I want to raise the positions that are listed to be in line with the other seasonal positions as well. That's why, a rec leader at 12.45 or whatever it is now, kick that up to the 15, because they're just as important to our department as seasonal workers on the maintenance staff. So I want to, compare apples to apples here, and it'll also, as Jennifer stated, will help us to retain and get new rec leaders in there. As far as our campground manager, our manager has 20 years of experience. His ability to fix problems, electrical problems, plumbing problems, things of that sort. Not only that, but to do his regular job as a campground manager out there saves us a lot of overtime coming in at night, and Ira will take care of that, and, we can deal with it the next morning. So it's very beneficial to us. So I would also ask that the council consider this amendment to the salary ordinance.
All right, thanks, Larry. Jennifer, anything else before I turn it over to the council?
No, we will do the second reading on the next council meeting. And the Board of Works, we presented a new hire report, effective 5 people, I believe, and their increases is contingent upon the passing of this ordinance, so.
Jerry, I think you were here this morning when we did that, and obviously, if this does not pass, those employees will be hired in at the old wage, and we'll have to consider what happens there. But I don't think it's gun to the head or anything. I think it's just, this really underscores the importance of trying to get qualified folks into our system in the summertime. We're hoping to come back this year with a rec leader, lifeguards. We've had trouble the past few years attracting lifeguards, and I think some of the activity that'll be going on down at Central Park with the new plaza and all the activity down there, I think it's really important that we have quality staff. So.
Right. And Joe, just a note too, the rec leader lifeguard and head lifeguard would not be starting until May. And the campground manager does not start until about mid-April, so it's not going to interfere with payroll.
And these are all, just for clarification, these are all seasonal positions, obviously.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are.
All right.
I think the other important clarification maybe that needs to be made is that we are in competition with surrounding areas for lifeguards, and we are paying one of the lowest. So I think it's important that if we want to attract quality people into that position and keep our community safe, that we become competitive in our wage.
Well, I know Larry told me last year he couldn't hire anybody because our wages were low.
Where does this place us then? When it comes to in competition with other cities or other?
Right, Jack, well, we will be paying more than the YMCA, and then the other competitor would be Winona Lake, and I believe we're going to be pretty evenly matched with Winona Lake.
Okay, so competitive.
Yes, yes.
And again, this would be considered tonight on first reading. Certainly, you'd have a chance to dig a little deeper into this. If you're not sure, we'll be hearing it again later this month. So I'd ask for your consideration of ordinance 2021-0402.
I move to approve ordinance 210402.
2021-0402, motion made on first reading by Councilman Gross. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilor Dobbins. Any further questions, comments? All right, we'll roll call vote. Jeff Gross.
Aye.
Dan Quantz.
Aye.
Jerry Frush.
Aye.
Jack Wilhite.
Aye.
Cindy Dobbins.
Aye.
Josh Finch.
Aye.
All right. Okay, we will consider round 2, the final reading, at our next meeting. So thank you all. Jennifer, thank you. Larry, thank you for jumping on. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other matters to come before the council tonight? All right. Questions, comments, any of our visitors?
Jeremy?
I was curious, how many jobs would be affected by the salary increase?
Jennifer, did you jump off? There was, this morning on Board of Works, I believe there were 6 jobs.
5 positions.
5 positions.
But I don't know how many.
But there were 6, I think there were 6 jobs that were impacted. I mean, it just depends
I
on,
can tell you,
okay?
it's one campground manager, and then it would be 3 rec department, for the rec department, one at the state park, and then lifeguards, if we can get any applications for lifeguards. We've had 4 applications so far, and tried to recall and reach out to them, and we've had no response. So I'm hoping that this will help in that response.
So 5 plus whatever we get in lifeguards. But what was on the Board of Works this morning was I believe, 6 positions. All right. All right. Well, hearing no other,
Move to adjourn?
you move to adjourn, great. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Should make it home for the ball game. Thanks, Jay. Good seeing you.
You're welcome, Mayor. Good to see everybody.
All righty, take care. Jeff, back to work.
Thank you.
They're putting that for, down
All
there.
right, buddy, take care.
Yes, I went down and walked on it.
Like this.